Anyway, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our One Industry session. We started these last year, and this is part of our industry support and readiness sessions. And this particular one this morning is get to know who's coming in 2021. Five things to know about the resident traveler. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Craig Foley, and I am the CEO of Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. These sessions that we're putting off as part of our COVID response programming. Many of you would know Stan Cook, who's going to take you through the rest of the day. But Stan and team have been focused very heavily on trying to find what the friction points are around, what COVID has created, and try and find some solutions, tactical solutions for the problems. And this is part of the work that is being delivered. There's been a significant outreach as part of that work, some research, and the topics that have been identified. You will see programming roll out on those. Today we're doing 3 sessions, and again, this day will be replicated on Wednesday to meet the demand. And if there's further demand, we'll have another day of sessions to meet that. But also there will be further sessions. So again, if you're not on our distribution list and you want to know more about this, follow us in our social media or subscribe to our emails. And I think that's probably enough to hear from me, other than most times when we have these events, we know the champions are the ones who are on. And if you recognize people who should be participating in some of these sessions to learn, please reach out to them and encourage them that there are resources. There's a huge support team, whether it be from the department, our federal partners, or our DMO partners. Everybody is there to help, and that support team is eager to help. We just need to hear what you need. So encourage people to reach out and be part of this, and hopefully it will really help in getting back to business now in 2021. So without further ado, I wish you all luck. Stan, I'm going to throw it to you, and you can introduce our presenter this morning. Take us through some housekeeping.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Good morning, folks. So we've all become very familiar with Zoom. So this is, as Craig said, is we have a full day of sessions, 3 sessions today, and we're actually going to repeat them again on Wednesday. And if demand is great, we might repeat them after that, especially if our presenters agree to it. But this morning's session that you've all signed up for is going to be 3 presenters. And of course, Michaela Robathan, who's the Director of Research for the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation, is going to start us off by breaking down the 2020 data and usable bite-sized pieces and help us get to know who's going to be in our province in 2021. We also have a couple of tourism all-stars who are going to come in after Michaela, and that is Joseph O'Brien of O'Brien Boat Tours and John Devereaux of the Edge of Avalon Inn. And we're going to hear from them about how they successfully prepared in 2020, dealt with the resident market, and how they're going to get ready for 2021. So they're obviously our presenters, and there's a big thank you to those folks for giving up some time this morning, and then we're going to tap them again to give up some time on Wednesday. We hope you all enjoyed the session. I think it's going to be pretty strong and valuable for us all. There's a couple this afternoon. They are full as of right now, but keep looking for these sessions. We might repeat them. We're hoping to. As a housekeeping piece, I know we've all done our Zooms and our different online platform sessions, but for this, what we're using today, we're going to ask that you guys put yourself on mute. And I know that I look a bit like Bob Cole calling the game on Saturday night. I'm going to put my video off too. So if you can all turn off your video feed and put yourselves on mute, that will limit any background interference. And lastly, to let you folks know that we're going to record these sessions, and they'll be available afterwards on our YouTube channel. So that's where we are for the housekeeping. So put yourself on mute, turn off your video feed, sit back and enjoy it, take a few notes, but you'll be able to go back and review the recordings if something slips by. At the end of the 3 presenters, we're going to have question and answer opportunities. So if folks have some questions they want to talk to some of these guys about, we'll allow that as well. So I'm going to start off by introducing Michaela Robathan, the Director of Research. And Michaela, when you're ready, you have the mic, and it's your show.
Fabulous. So I'm just gonna share my screen to put up my slides. Give me a second. And move this. So just someone give me a nod that you can see my slides all right.
You're looking good. The slide looks good, Michaela.
Excellent. So move right into the next one. So thank you, Stan, for your introduction, and thank you to H&L for inviting me to present at this session today. It is always a pleasure to directly connect with our tourism operators and talk a little bit about research. And so Stan already mentioned that we want to talk today a little bit about how we can prepare for the upcoming tourism season, and we want to delve into a little more into our recent research survey data to learn a little bit more about what our resident travelers did last summer and what opportunities we have to build on last summer's momentum. You see this agenda here on the screen is relatively short, but still we have lots of things to talk about. And so we'll start off with talking a little bit about what travel demand looks like right now. We talk about 5 things that are useful to know about our resident travelers. Talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that arise from that. And there's a couple of things I would like to talk about with respect to building traveler confidence and delivering value to travelers. These are 2 very important topics. And again, this is not because I want to talk about this. This is because research is telling us that this is important to talk about. And then a quick peek at our potential maritime travelers in case the Atlantic bubble does open. So let's look let's have a look at what demand looks like right now. So there has been a lot of talk, like all the time. There's always a lot of talk about pent-up travel demand, and really, indeed, like research does tell us that travel demand really exists. So this is not just a fiction of somebody's imagination. It's really survey after survey. We do find out that people do want to get out and travel, and they can't wait. And it's been too long, really, that we've been confined to our small spaces. And actually, one interesting term that has crept up over, I guess, the past few months, and you're hearing it more and more now, is quite interesting. It's revenge spending, and I'm sure those of you who stay on top of the news have come across it, and we've heard it both in terms of retail and travel. I don't know what to think about this at this stage. It's a funny term, and with a lot of it's actually, I find it's very loaded because it raises expectations, and I'm sure consumers will go out and spend, but whether this is going to be a mass occurrence or whether it will be happening or when it actually will be happening, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So, but when it comes to our own residents, we can certainly tell that there is definitely demand building. And I'm very optimistic that the province will benefit a lot from our resident travel this year. One of the interesting results of Destination Canada's research that we have seen recently is that when we compare Newfoundland and Labrador to other provinces, Newfoundland and Labrador was actually the only province where residents indicated that there is a higher share of residents who are likely to travel in province rather than out of province. So our residents are more likely to travel within their own province rather than going outside and traveling in Canada or in another province. So, which is certainly good news. And depending on what the pandemic situation will look like in a month or two, it is also very likely that residents will travel in their home province rather than venturing outside the province or even outside the country. And residents do plan to spend more time traveling in the province than they did last year, which certainly makes us think about the upcoming season in very optimistic terms. So now let's see what we have learned about our residents travelers from last year. So we have done a lot of research last year, probably more than we've ever done before. I'm a little bit afraid that we're researching everybody to death these days, but it's if we have learned one thing really about research too is that um, things can change so quickly, and when things change, some of the research that we have done doesn't really matter anymore. We've seen that unfortunately we did a maritime travel intention survey back in the fall, November, December, to see what travel potential might look like for the winter to come over here and visit the province. And about a week after we got the results from that research, unfortunately, the bubble closed. So we know things can change very quickly, and so everything we have learned, it's true under the given circumstances, but again, we got to watch for any changes. So, and last year was a season under very difficult circumstances when people traveled in summer and the fall, um, and we really don't know what travel is going to look like in a few months or what the pandemic situation is going to be look like. But we do have some, I would say, solid information from last year's travel, and a few takeaways that we can take that will help us prepare for this year. So let's have a look at those five things. Of course, there's more than five things that we can learn from our survey, but these are sort of the most helpful, most useful, uh, the ones those things that are probably have the broadest application among all our tourism operators. Um, so what we've learned from research last year was that really residents of all ages and residents from all regions traveled throughout the province. But they did have a tendency to stay close to home, and a lot of residents traveled in their own region or in a close by neighboring regions. So these travel patterns were likely impacted by the pandemic situation. As you remember, there's a lot of uncertainty, or there was a lot of uncertainty around. We never really knew what was going to happen the next day. And considering the uncertainty and how quickly things can change, staying close to home probably provided the residents with a level of comfort uh, to know that home is not that far away when things change. Um, so most of the trips that residents took were for vacation, but visiting family and friends was also a very frequent trip purpose. And we also know that residents made an average of two trips and stayed an average of 4 nights per trip. And that's really a good news because um, we will likely see this type of pattern again this year, that people make multiple trips and potentially for multiple reasons and for multiple nights. So that's lots of potential there. Um, and it's also no surprise anymore at this stage that outdoor and nature experiences ranked very high on residents' to-do lists, and local restaurants were, of course, top places residents visited. And another point that's very important here, and very, actually good news, is that if COVID levels can be kept low over the next several months and vaccinations are progressing well, it will probably not take much convincing this year to stimulate and motivate our residents to do it again. They had fabulous experiences last year, and almost everyone is ready to do it again this year. However, it's a little bit of a different story for those who did not travel due to the pandemic, and that segment of our residents will probably take a little bit more convincing to get out and get on the road, enjoy the province. And for these residents, it's very important to build some confidence uh, and let them know that our province is a very safe place to travel. And this will also help increase the potential of, ah, sorry, this will also help increase resident travel potential so we get more people on the road. So we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail further on. So now, so this was the summary of those 5 things that I want to talk about, and now I'll get a little bit more specific. And the view that I'm going to take is a little bit of a mixture of what we have learned from our own resident travel survey about travel last summer and fall, and we also have a very rich data at our disposal from a survey that Destination Canada did back in November. So the timing is important to know. So that was done in November. And it's with the combination of those 2 data sets, I think we get a pretty good picture of the state of mind of our resident travelers and what how we can use the information to build that travel momentum that we need for this season. So I want to look at destinations first. And usually what we do when we talk about non-resident travel, we take uh, a perspective that looks at the province as a whole. So we're getting the traveler, the non-residents into the province, and then they go out and do things and across the whole province, and we're talking as the province as a whole. But sometimes, it's really, there are circumstances where it makes sense to take a regional perspective, which is what we're doing here a little bit. We do live in a place that has dispersed communities. We have potentially long travel distances. So taking a look at what is right in front of our eyes is sometimes a little bit more practical, especially given the travel pattern that we had last year with residents staying very close to home. And so as the pandemic conditions are improving, there's a chance that residents might venture out a little bit further and take a slightly different perspective on what they want to get out of a trip now that they have 1 year under their belt traveling in the province. So there's actually a good chance here to build some potential. And, last year everything was about, change of scenery. We were all cooped up for several months at home, didn't know what was going to happen. And just to be able to get out was great. And this year, I think we have an opportunity to build on that and put a lot of meaning into a trip at home. So, and so what we have, our province is beautiful. I don't, I'm talking to the converted here. We know we have beautiful scenery everywhere, rich history and culture, adventures, wilderness, authenticity can be experienced everywhere in the province, but each region is also slightly different in to someone, and another region has something that appeals more to other people. So on this slide here, what you see, this really summarizes some of the relative regional strengths, and this is based on our own residents' perceptions. I didn't make that up. This is really based on research, and the stress here is relative strength. So you can see that all our regions complement each other. There's really no duplication here. So everybody has something to offer. And again, it will appeal, some things will appeal a little more to some and a little less to others. But there's a great opportunity for operators to reach across regions or even within your region to see how we can complement each other and perhaps motivate residents to do and see a little more. So one of the areas where we have a little bit of work to do, or where there's an opportunity by doing a little bit more work, is working on improving destination knowledge. I believe last year we probably have had some residents traveling within the province who normally probably wouldn't touch the province for travel. They're just, we do know we have a small proportion of the of our residents that just don't travel here. They always go outside the province, whether it's somewhere else in Canada or even outside the country. So it's no surprise that destination knowledge is not perfect, and it's not in other provinces. We have the same picture. So this is not really something to worry about. It's not unique to our province that there's maybe gaps between different tourism regions. Um, Destination Canada provides a very good picture that this is the same in other provinces. Like when we look at Nova Scotia, for instance, destination knowledge about Halifax is sort of in the same level as it is for St. John's. And if you look at some other regions like Yarmouth or even Cape Breton, destination knowledge is much lower. Destination knowledge meaning residents who know about travel opportunities within the different regions. So it does vary within the province, and St. John's is at the higher end, Labrador at the lower end. But by educating our residents about what is available in each of the regions and playing out of the strengths that you're seeing here on the screen, does give us a lot of opportunity to educate residents and let people know uh, the things they need to know so they can make an informed decision about where they might be traveling this year. So next, I want to talk a little bit about travel purpose and length of stay. And we know from our non-resident travel research that trip purpose, length of stay, and the type of destination travelers go to are very closely linked. Last year, our residents went on an average of 2 overnight trips in the province, and they stayed 4 nights per trip. I'll mention that. So that's really good news. So more than one trip is good. More than one night is also good. So, and of course, length of stay varied by destination. And actually, we had a pretty large range within the different regions. So a trip to Labrador lasted on average 12 nights, while a trip to the eastern region lasted about 3 nights. And everything else was sort of in between. I believe a trip to St. John's was about 4 to 5 nights. So I would expect similar patterns for this year. Again, this is under this, if the circumstances don't change very much with the pandemic. And so we know from the research that people are inclined to likely go on more than one trip, and there will be likely more than one purpose. So some people might go on a vacation trip, and then the next trip they take is to visit relatives and friends. And depending on who you ask the question, how you ask the question, which survey you take, those two purposes, vacation and visit relatives and friends, they're very close. They're top of mind, what people want to do. So, but the numbers might vary. Might not be 60% in one survey. It might be 50 or 70. So again, but these two trips will dominate travel. And again, depending on what type of trip people go on, for what purpose, it will determine likely how long they're going to be on the road. And clearly, there's some preference. The research tells us right now there's some preference of shorter getaway trips over longer stays, but each type of travel will attract certain types of travelers, and you can do that with specific offers. There are still multiple travelers are multiple days away from home, and those multiple days need to be filled with activities and experiences. Again, like each type of trip, like the shorter ones and the longer ones, there's an opportunity to educate and catch up on the destination knowledge. So we could build some itineraries for a shorter getaway, or built an itinerary for those longer trips, for the perfect vacation trip. Um, and also, we do know there's people who want to get out and travel and they may not quite know what they should be doing this year. So, the more information we can provide residents with what is available to do, what the opportunities are in the different places, the better. And there's also an opportunity to put together a great package that provides value to our residents. So next up, what are we talking about? Experiences and activities. Uh, when it comes to activities and experiences, the pandemic has really hit like a sledgehammer in some ways, because it did have a dramatic impact on what travelers prefer to do and what places they want to visit. So we know outdoors over indoors, wide open spaces over crowded attractions, and that was really necessitated by the physical distancing measures and by having to limit our exposure to social interactions, which is really quite a shame. So this is probably one of the reasons behind why we saw last year a lot of visits to the beaches in Central, and we also saw a high popularity of hiking and walking trails. So, and this again, depending on how things are going and what the caseload is going to be like in Newfoundland, Labrador, what the health measures are going to be in the province, we'll likely see similar things this summer. So on this table here on the slide, on the left-hand side, you see last year's top 10. So those are the top places and activities that residents visited and engaged in. And on the right-hand side, it's just a general a list of top 10 general vacation interests that residents have indicated. And there's such a thing as like there's a concept by Destination Canada called anchor activities, and or you could call them trip motivators as well. So those activities are the ones that travelers would plan a trip around, and those are highlighted in green here. You see hiking and walking, natural attractions, camping, historic sites. They're very high on the interest level scale. And you also see that there is some alignment between between last year's favorites of our residents and the general vacation interests among residents. So, and also there's you can see there's a high level of interest in historic sites, and our travelers enjoyed those sites really last year. And given some of the outdoor spaces that historic sites have throughout the province, so basically this, the nature of the very attraction, um, these sites have the potential to serve as trip motivators again this year and get residents out the door. And so especially uh, when they can be experienced as a family. Now I put live shows and festivals on this slide. As you can see, live shows here is highlighted in green. It's one of these anchor activities um, that people plan trips around. Festivals and live shows and festivals are extremely popular among our residents, and usually they're travel generators. But the big question mark is, and I'm leaning more towards yes, but the big question mark is, are these things going to be allowed? We don't know what the limits are going to be for gatherings. Um, Again, I'm thinking it might not happen, but if we're lucky and some of these things are allowed later on this summer, this could really provide a boost to resident travel. But again, we have to wait and see see how it goes. So next, and this is one of the favorite things I want to talk about. Um, One of the most interesting uh, aspects, or perhaps even one of most important learnings from our resident travel survey last year was that residents who did go on overnight trips last year had great enjoyable experiences. Um, I remember I had like when we got together as a tourism industry in various settings. I remember that we had many operators actually struck when it became clear that there was no non-resident travel season this year. Many operators struggled with how to position or adjust their offers to residents because they're used to non-residents, and we admittedly we did not have any current travel research on residents. So it was very difficult to make some decisions of what to offer, how to position the offer to residents, how to price it. So it was very tough for operators to do this. But here's the good news. What operators did uh, or ended up doing, uh, obviously, survey says it worked well. So I can confirm that. So that should give us a little bit of confidence of saying, okay, what we did last year worked well, and with a few adjustments, we can do it again, or how can we think about how to improve it. But on the grand scheme of things, it really did work, and the survey confirms that. So we did in our survey, we asked our residents about their most memorable experiences when they traveled, and by far, spending time with family was the winner in that respect. Um, but also interesting is the fact that residents found specific attractions and places very memorable. So we've heard that people, respondents to our survey, they cited how they enjoyed history in Buena Vista, being out in Boyd's Cove at the historic site. They enjoyed Salmonia Nature Park, the Siemens Museum in Grand Bank, or exploring Fogo Island, climbing Grossmore Mountains. So all these things were mentioned, and I think the way people or residents talked about their experiences, what they mentioned, and how they enjoyed it. I think this speaks volumes about what operators accomplished last year, given the very difficult circumstances they had to deal with. So, and I do believe this bodes well for this year as well. So, first of all, as you can see here, 92% of residents who were out on overnight trips last year would take another overnight pleasure trip this year based on the experience they had last year. So, this, to me, this is just takes the cake from the survey. It really bodes well for this year. And if the pandemic conditions play along. I don't know if that's the right term. This season, um, this season will likely be much more manageable for operators, as we know a lot more things about the virus. We know the vaccinations are progressing, and some of the uncertainty we were dealing with last year has been removed. So we have a really good setup this year to get people out the door again and travel in the province. So now, now that we know that a few things about uh, um, our resident travelers, uh, what can we take away from this? How does that open up opportunities? I just want to touch quickly on some of the opportunities that came out of our survey, and that will help build us on the momentum that we created last year. Um, I'll I won't spend a lot of time on this because I know John Angelopoulos and his team, they will elaborate more on this in the session that follows this one later this morning. So one thing though I would like for everyone to remember, so I'm going to be talking about three opportunities specifically. Those are the ones that really jumped out from the survey, and that probably have appealed to a greater number of potential resident travelers. But it doesn't mean we're limited to these opportunities. There's lots more around. Um, so please don't forget that. And again, like also what we're talking about might not be available to all operators or everybody. So um, this is just what really jumped out and what likely has a lot of appeal to a lot of residents. So uh, first up, let's talk about food. As you have seen a couple of slides ago, visits to local restaurants were really on top of people's lists of places that they visited when they traveled last year. And everybody needs to eat. It's almost very simple, but it's not that simple because uh, food and drink is an area. Like I've been with the department now in the research for 12 years, and food and drink is one of one of the areas where we collectively as a province have made uh, great strides in developing unique experiences across the province. And really, these experiences um, expand on the traditional sense of taste. At least I feel that way, and they're going beyond just sitting at the table in a restaurant. So the beauty with food and drink really is that you can be very creative. It can be very versatile. It can be simple yet complex, and it can be combined with many other activities, and it can happen in virtually any setting. And the other positive thing about food and drink to me is that it's a great opportunity for partnerships and to create valuable packages. So uh, now the other thing is the next opportunity I want to talk about is discovering something new in your own backyard. So one of the other interesting outcomes of last year's season was that there were many first times, really, and to me, maybe I should have known better, but to me that was a little bit of a surprise. If you think about it, over a quarter of residents visited a destination for the first time, um, and that includes destinations that we generally know are very popular with non-residents. That includes Buena Vista, Rosemorne, Fogo Island, Twillingate, Kings Point. These were some of the places that have been mentioned. Um, but again, it probably goes back to the fact that we had few travelers across the province that never traveled the province before. But again, like 27%, that's nothing to sneeze at. So there's a lot of things that people, our own residents, can still learn and discover in the province. So, and also, while people, we talked about how people stay close to home and maybe stay with the things they know. During the pandemic, residents might still feel a little bit more comfortable to visit destinations they know well and they have visited before. There's also great potential in getting residents to travel by stimulating their sense of curiosity and find something new to discover in the province. You can see here 38%, sorry, 38% of residents would visit new destinations that they have never visited before. And that's, to me, that's a very good number to build from. So, and if you remember, we talked earlier about residents' destination knowledge or the lack thereof. So there's also an opportunity here to make a few suggestions to residents that they might not be aware of, and let them know where the things are and what the things are that they can discover that they may never have seen before. And of course, this would work well in combination with appealing to residents' interest in nature and history. And again, one of the things we've learned from this from our research as well is that, you know uh, in I don't know, again, in the spirit of limiting, not the spirit, it's not a spirit, uh, but the necessity to limit our interactions, even while we're traveling. Uh, Residents are more inclined to just choose one or two activities during the day, um, as opposed to cramming their day full of activities and being out there and doing as much as they can. This will likely not be the case. So instead, they're choosing one or two things, and this is an opportunity to get those one or two things in front of residents' eyes and say, and make it count. So this is the one. If you want to have an experience, this is the one. So this should really work well with our resident travelers. And last but not least, number three, the third opportunity I want to touch on, um, that involves family travel or travel with friends. So we just saw a couple of slides ago that when it comes to memorable moments during last year's travel, um, residents really enjoyed the time with family and friends, and it also, from a little bit of forward-looking perspective, um, the opportunity to visit with family and friends is a very important factor in deciding where residents want to go, what destinations they choose, how long a trip they're going to go on, what activities they want to do, and so it's very important to be able to enjoy some of the things out there uh, with family and friends. So, and again, we've seen that family visiting trips to visit family and friends will be uh, top of mind for many residents. And to be able to do that with family and to travel with family and enjoy a few things across the province will mean a lot. And also, um, will it's from a public health measure perspective, I guess. It's quite possible that family bubbles are still around once the season starts. We don't know exactly how big our family bubbles can be, but it will be something that people will consider when they go out and travel, and when they decide what activities or experiences they want to participate in. So anything that can be done in small groups will likely be appreciated by those who travel with family and friends. And being confined to your family bubble might help stimulate the knowledge of being able that you can be confined to your family bubble might get some more people out the door and travel. So again, as I mentioned, John Angelopoulos and his team, they will talk a little bit more about these opportunities in more detail. So, but I just want to give you a quick overview of um, what came out of our survey last year. So um, now I just want to touch on a couple of things that I call them the baseline, because they're just so absolutely necessary when we're preparing for next year's season. And again, I want to stress this is not my personal opinion. This comes from the surveys. This is what the research tells us that this is important to talk about. And I know we've been talking about health measures, safety measures for a very long, what seems like a very long time. Um, but again, just seeing some numbers here and how it relates to the traveler is very important to, I guess, kind of visualize it in our heads, how important this is. And also, it's just not just important for resident travelers. It also it applies to any potential visitor if we do open up. It's just as important to those folks as it is to our own residents. So as we know, traveler confidence has been severely shattered by the, and I do believe shattered is the right word to use here, by the pandemic when it comes to travel. And yeah, when it comes to travel, nothing will be as it was, or nothing is will ever be the same. So, and we do know we do have some pent up demand, but it's by no means a given that once travel restrictions are lifted, that people stream out in droves and go on a trip. It is pretty certain that there will be a lag between travel restrictions being lifted and when people are actually traveling again. So it's still very difficult to imagine what travel might look like this season. We're hopeful that things stay the same. Low caseloads and people feeling comfortable being out there and actually being allowed by the public health measures to be out and travel. And but we can be pretty certain that any travel decision that will be made by anybody, resident or non-resident, will be impacted by the COVID case numbers, the state of the vaccinations, um, people's own risk tolerance comes into play, and also who else is traveling and uh, where those other travelers might be coming from. I think one of the interesting uh, phenomena pheno- phenomena that occurred last year is when the Atlantic bubble opened. We had two types of reactions. One was, um, oh, like any resident who had planned to travel within the province. So we had two types of reactions. Some people said, oh, instead of traveling here, I'm now going to the Maritimes. And some other people said, oh, the Maritimers are coming. I'm not going anywhere. So there was a little bit of a hesitancy there. Like people are really watching who's around them, which is unfortunate. And that's certainly one of the issues we'll have to address through educating people about the health measures and the necessity of um, having these health measures around. So it would certainly be helpful um, to have that level of education. So the numbers you're seeing here on the slide, I feel that there's only a few, but they do speak for themselves. And these numbers, doesn't matter which travel related survey you look at, there the sentiment is the same everywhere. Doesn't matter what you look at, and it really shows how important health and safety measures are for residents when it comes to travel. So, and but this is not only like health and safety measures is one thing, and but there's also other issues very closely related to health and safety, which is cancellation and refund policies. So these measures are important to give residents or travelers peace of mind in case their circumstances do change or the pandemic, gets worse, whatever personal circumstances change and travel plans need to be changed. So these two issues, in my mind, go hand in hand. So now, what are some of the things that we can do to address this and build back traveler confidence? Again, from the research, you we're getting a really, really strong sense um, that there has to be a demonstrated commitment to health, hygiene, and safety. And the stress here is on the word demonstrated. A commitment in itself, just saying you're doing it, is simply not enough to build that level of confidence among travelers to go out there and travel. People need to be able to observe what is being done to keep them safe. It needs to be explained. It needs to be visible, uh, and it needs to be front and center to give travelers that level of confidence uh, that they do feel okay. Yes, it's safe to travel. And the other side of the coin is yes, we do have the health and safety measures in place. Uh, Enforcement is just as important. Enforcement of the measures needs to be visible, like mask wearing, things like that. Very, very important. Again, this is not me saying this, this is the research saying that this is a very important aspect for travelers to get the confidence back. So, and what is, you know, an unfortunate casualty in my mind, and especially for our province, is that face to face interactions is uh, one of the things that are going sideways now to address your these health and safety concerns, but by limiting, interactions. Technology will come into place. Um, Digital, virtual, touchless, all these type of things are going to be front and center for many travelers, while the personal interaction aspect goes away. But and this is one of the challenges, to address, where we're kind of sitting between a rock and a hard place, because the personal interaction is quite often, we've heard that from non-residents a lot, is a key ingredient to defining travel experiences, and especially in Newfoundland, Labrador, where we are chatty, uh, we like talking to our visitors, and and unfortunately, those types of interactions need to be curbed and addressed with through other means. So I already mentioned that hand in hand with the health and safety measures are flexible and easy cancellation, rebooking, and refund policies. It just it when people commit to traveling, they also make a financial commitment, and just to know that it will be easy and painless for them to get their money back if they need to change their travel plans. Um, it's much easier for them to make that booking and knowing that they're not bearing the financial risk on their own shoulders. Not many of us, uh, we know how it feels. At least I know how it feels because Air Canada still owes me like $1,100 or $1,200. They've been sitting on that money for over a year, and that does to me that's not good policy. So, but many operators have a year under their belt now under traveling in pandemic conditions, and again, I guess that was one of the things I think H&L worked very hard on with operators to talk about travel related policies and how all this works. So every one of you has experience with this, and you know what works and what is good customer policy, but it's certainly one area that will is very helpful to build traveler confidence. Um, so now I want to move on to talk a little bit about delivering value for money. And for those of you who know me, this is one of the things I will never stop talking about. And it has been, and there's a good reason for it. It's not because I really like that topic. It's one of the most important things when it comes to delivering travel services. And as you know, we are all traveler, and as you know, when you travel yourself, receiving value for the money you pay or not receiving it can make or break a trip for many travelers. And this issue has been around for a long time, and it has been elevated really by the pandemic because of the economic impact the pandemic has had on people and household finances. And I remember last year before the season started, I had a couple of conversations with operators, and they're really one of the struggles that they faced was setting prices. And we've heard about instances of residents haggling for prices and all this kind of stuff. Yes, this does go on, but um, we'll always have to look at two sides of the coin. Like, okay, why are they haggling for a price? So, and just to show the impact of the financial impact of the pandemic here in a few numbers, um, it is severe for quite a few people, and while those who are impacted the most are not necessarily in a majority, the pandemic did bring about a new sense of frugality. We've seen this like in general consumer trends that we've been studying. Frugality is top of the list now. We've seen this back in when we had the recession in 2008-9. It started then, and now again it has popped up 10 times over. Uh, so again, how this works out with the revenge spending, I'm not quite sure. So, but seriously, so as operators, we do need to understand where the travelers or potential travelers' mindset is, and where they're coming from when they're looking for a deal or a lower price. You can see here one of the striking numbers here is that 54% of Newfoundland Labrador residents delayed big purchases due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, and that includes vacations, includes other big purchases like cars and houses, furniture, things like that. So still, even though only half, like a quarter of residents indicated that they experienced a big financial impact, a lot more people delayed big purchases due to the uncertainties of the pandemic. And this is something we just need to understand. As I said, one side of the coin. And now here's the other side of the coin. And price is one thing, but as Warren Buffett put it so eloquently, price is what you pay, and value is what you get, right? So price and value are certainly not the same thing. And again, the most important thing to remember is, and we sometimes might forget that, value is what the traveler perceives it to be. So to make things a little bit more complicated, but the pandemic really has brought about a lot of changes, and some of the changes that we're seeing are in the values, the customer values, or what consumers perceive as value. If you think about the case numbers throughout the world, over a million, 100 million cases, millions of people have passed away because of the pandemic. So that for many people, the pandemic has put a whole new perspective and outlook on life. So it is all the harder now just to figure out what customers think of value. And again, what people, the meaning of travel has certainly changed with it. And what comes with that is that people want to have changed their expectations of what they want to get out of a trip. So it makes a difference to how they travel, where they travel, how long they travel, what means of transportation they use, um, what travel providers they choose, because everything has changed in their lives. So figuring out what value is for a customer these days has probably gotten a little tougher. And but what it still involves is that we have to know our customers' needs and cater to these needs, and we'll be sure to hit the nail on the head when it comes to value. So there's a few things operators can do. You see them here on the slide. Um, uh, and sometimes these are easy or relatively easy things that can be done by just in the daily uh, operational processes that are in place. Personalizing and customizing might be some easy things to do, like just knowing somebody's coming to your hotel or a restaurant for an anniversary, a birthday, or a special event, putting those chocolate covered strawberries in the room, or extra bouquet of flowers, something like that. Anything that makes customers feel special. Sometimes it's the simple things, it doesn't have to be complicated. And boom, people don't forget how much they paid for the room, as long as they're treated very specially. Um, Empowering staff is a very powerful tool that can be used, because they can make a decision on the spur of the moment, what through their interaction with customers or travelers, and give them that special deal, that upgrade to the hotel room, or the 2 for 1 or something like that, right? So very powerful things we can do by doing small changes in our operations.
Michaela, this is Stan. It's very informative stuff, and in the spirit of saving some time at the end for questions and answers, can you wrap it up very
I'll
soon?
wrap it up. I'm almost at the end. I've got about 2 minutes
Okay.
left.
Thanks,
So,
Michaela.
um, so thinking about as an operator, just give some thought to what value would be in your mind, what you have to offer to your customers. And when you do get a chance to talk to your customers, try to learn as much as you can about them, because it will make it easier for you to determine what is value in their eyes. And it will also make for good repeat um, business and good word of mouth. So just a quick look at the Maritime Visitors, in case the Atlantic bubble does open. We have a date out there, April 19th. Keep fingers crossed that this will help, that this will stay the same, that it won't change. We have no hiccups, no breakouts. So um, again, there's 5 things here on the slide. They're very aligned with what we learned about our resident travelers. So really, at the end of the day, whatever you put together to address residents' needs, to stimulate and motivate resident travel, would resonate very well with maritime visitors as well. They're very keen. There's demand out there. We know that because um, they're seriously considering Newfoundland as a travel destination. It might mostly be for family and friends, but regardless, they're coming, they're traveling. A good opportunity to build on the resident potential. And I believe that's it. I want to leave you with this quote. As you know, if we're still feeling a little bit down, holidays are not going to go away. People always need a holiday, and people will be traveling again. And I know it's hard to be patient with this. We want people getting out, but uh, I do believe things are looking good for the summer. And very quickly, here's some contact information for our team and my partner in crime, Krista Noseworthy, and myself. Please feel free to contact us. And I would encourage you to go to our website and have a look at what is posted there. We are frequently, yeah, we're putting out we're posting reports on our consumer research. The more detailed resident travel survey report is posted there. And one thing I would encourage you to read through as well is the our summary of all the consumer research that we worked our way through, and sort of giving you the big picture of where the consumer is, the consumer mindset. Uh, Interesting report. You'll take a lot away from this. And again, you know where to find us. We're always there. We answer can. And worst case scenario, we have to say no, we don't have it, but uh, always, um, always ready to help if we can. So I think that's it for me, Stan.
Perfect. Thank you, Michaela.
And I'll stop
Very,
sharing my screen.
yeah, that's excellent. You can stop sharing that. And those insights were excellent. I think they're going to show some great ideas how people can shape their decisions for the summer coming up. And we're going to throw it over to Joe O'Brien, who many of you know. And Joe and his brother Loyola have been operating O'Brien's Whale and Boat Tours for over 30 years. And Joseph, the virtual floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Stan. Can everybody hear me there?
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear, Joe.
Excellent. Sorry about my technology being on the bum here today, but I have iPads and computers, and the only thing works is my cell phone, which I hope didn't work a lot of the time, but it seems to be pulling it off pretty good. So good morning, everybody. In 2019, everybody was looking for a great year in 2020. Myself and my partner and all our team were all very excited about what was going on, and at hospitality on our way home, we started to realize things were on the change. I had just arrived back at hospitality from a Caribbean vacation and hadn't been met at the airport with a mobile thermometer as I arrived in the Caribbean. I said, "Oh my God, I hope this doesn't happen." But anyway, it did. So when we got home, we had to figure out plans on what to do. Because we're a small family operation, we knew that we were going to be opening in July. We're worried to death. Our local other operators, such as the Devereaux boys, were in the same boat as ourselves and talked about what can we do. And we said, well, we're going to open. And they said, well, if you're going to open, we're going to open. And then we thought about it some more and went back to our little corners and huddled for a while and said, if we each open up our operations with a limited amount of capacity and a limited amount of guests, we would probably end up eating each other financially and making it a very difficult place to be in. So we put on our thinking caps and started to wonder how we could collaborate or partner, as they would think about. So we spoke together, all boys, and they said they'd be interested in partnering. And then my partner said, well, how does this work? And I said, well, here's how it's going to go to make the contract viable. You're going to pretend you're the Devereaux, and I'm going to pretend I'm us, and we're going to try and hammer out a deal, and then we're going to offer it to the gentleman across the street. And we came up with a equal relationship, a fair share of how to do it, and divide the expenses and run the operation. It all looked well. It was sort of like trying to create Burger King and McDonald's and put them all into a Whopper package. And as a result, we came up with a great Whopper product and offered it to Newfoundlanders. Michaela's thoughts about how to address your customer by touchless and being responsible for COVID. Safety was top priority on both our concerns because we are judged by what our guests think about us on social media, TripAdvisor, and that sort of an event. Doing that, we said we'd have to make everything as safe as possible, advise all our guests about the bubble and how to protect themselves within the vessel, dividing them up into different sections of the boat. And people, if you sat at a table, had to stay at that table. That was your table till the tour was over. People in different sections on the boat stayed in those areas. Then we had to make sure they felt comfortable with everything about what we're doing, such as wearing masks. A lot of people were very apprehensive about the mask, and our comments were very simple. A mask is inconvenient and difficult to breathe through, but a ventilator is worse. But then they didn't ask that question anymore. And then between trips running between ourselves and the Devereaux, we made sure the boats were very sanitized. Our boat was very sanitized and clean. We made a specific emphasis on making sure people noticed you were keeping her clean and kept her as shiny and as safe and sanitized as humanly possible, which give people a great deal of confidence. Then people all want to know how to cancel, what's your cancellation policy, and how we're going to deal with protocols. All of this came along, and we changed our policy from 24-hour cancellation to 1 hour cancellation. So if you didn't feel like it within up to 1 hour of prior sailing, we'd offer a cancellation policy. A lot of my colleagues didn't think that was right, and I said, well, we got to try and build consumer confidence, and we have to make changes to do that. So because of COVID, we changed the policy, and people accepted that and were very pleased about it all. And because they're always wondering if the weather changes, I don't want to go out and I don't want to be inside in the cabin. So all these things made a big difference. Creating consumer confidence is what we have to do in order to get people to wish to travel with us. So wearing these masks and making sure everybody understood where we were coming from if you weren't feeling well, how we would deal with it, what we would do to protect the other guests and make you feel safe is all crucially important. Then we said we'd have to build a website, and we just kind of smashed our two websites together into what we call a Go Tour operation, which was very easy. A booking reservation system. We used a one Bookio service, and both companies drummed all their business individually into that one service. So then the seats were available. Guests could understand through social media how to make a reservation, which is crucial in our industry because people want one touch, one click shopping. They want to be able to go online, look at it, book it, throw in their Bitcoin or whatever sort of currency they want to use, and we'll accept everything, even promissory notes. So we made all that very simple, kept it very tight and very comfortable for people to understand. That's what you must do in order to survive. If you told me in 2019 that I would be partners with my supposedly arch enemies, the Devereaux boys, I would have laughed and said it's not possible. But today we'll be looking at 2021 as a strong go together. And if things change and we get rest of Canada open up, yes, we will run our own operations. But for now, we must collaborate and join because running businesses, two companies that close together will end up sinking each other. So we're very, very thoughtful minded about what we got to do to protect our vested interests in our companies. We have quite a lot of money invested in our businesses, and we don't want to see it all be drained away by not making good financial decisions in tough times. So that being said, we worked well, and we work into the future. Who knows how the rest of the world will see us or how we will end up in 2022, 23. We will not know that till time tells no tales or shows everybody down a different path. But for now, for our two companies to pull together like we did, it only made the most sense because it cut our expenses on both sides of the table. It also secured jobs for our staff because a lot of our staffs have been with us quite a long period of time, and we have quite a respect for our staff because we're nothing without our staff. If our staff were not out there talking and telling and promoting and feeling positive about it, we don't have a product to offer. And being that we have such a lovely seabird colony and so close to the capital city and have a great relationship with all the hotel people, we felt strong about where we were too. But for 2020, that was a complete change because there was nobody coming from the hotels. How do we attract people? So it was based on our electronic media. And even today, now for 2021, we're just opening up a new website for our companies and trying to attract local people because that's where we see ourselves in 2021. And you've got to adjust. We always say you got to cut the cloth to suit the garment. So that's what we had to do. We didn't think it would work at first, but we put our minds together and worked hard because everything we've created in our businesses up to date was hinged on whether or not we could make this sort of a relationship work. And I was very, very pleased at the end of it to see it all come together like it did, and to see people's comments on social media and to hear the talk on the street. What made us all feel good that things that didn't look like would ever happen actually happened. It was sort of like, getting the Irvings and the Petro-Canadas to all agree in the North Atlantic to work together. And sometimes that's the best for the consumer. And that's what we always thought about was our consumer, because without our guests, we don't have any revenue. We don't have any revenue. We can't pay any bills. We can't pay people's wages. So we had to just think about outside the box on how to make it work. And we're very pleased that our guests accepted our systems that we put together. And we look forward to doing it in 2021 the best we can. I don't have a long-winded story. I know that we got to keep our guests happy, safe, and make them feel confident about services. That's how we survive. That's our business, because we're as good as our last guests saw us through their eyes. And if you remember that, you'll get through any sort of a pandemic. And the pandemic has turned the world upside down, but it's also made the world look through a different lens on what they want for services. And as we go forward, we possibly see a lot of other changes happening in the tourism industry, and then how to make our offerings to our guests more competitive and more attractive. So, it's in some ways it's opened our eyes in a lot of ways to what consumer demands are and what you can offer for your offerings. And that's how we see it. And we're very pleased that it came off in that light. I don't know much else to tell you other than that we smashed it together as fast as we could, because in June there was no question.
Thanks, Joe. Well done. That's a good message. Obviously, you guys, you've won enough awards that for people know your demographics, your markets, and for folks to hear about the Hatfields and McCoys coming together and creating a successful summer. That's very impressive indeed. Good stuff. Much appreciated. On to our next operator, Mr. John Devereaux, who's the owner of the Edge of the Avalon Inn and Restaurant in Trepassey. John's going to step up now and give us his version of how he looked at his demographics and how he looked at some facts and some results and came up with his plan for 2020 and what he's going to be doing for 2021. Johnny, it's yours.
Good morning, Stan. Thank you for you and the H&L team for having me here. You put me in a predicament already. I mean, following Joe O'Brien is like putting, Craig Foley on after the Rolling Stones. So thank you for that. Well done, Joe. Great job. And Michaela also. Nice presentation. A lot of informative information there that we came from. And one thing I noticed is that as an accommodator and a tourism operator, it looks like that we are on the right track and we're following a lot of your research data that you have there. So that's a good feeling there from my perspective. Just going to give you a quick story of my operation and how we've bobbed and weaved and pivoted, the word that we all hate to hear now. When we left the H&L conference last year in, I guess it was March, we were all hugging and kissing, and everyone was all pumped up about the 2020 season. And we got home, and I guess 2 weeks later, everything was shut down. And anyway, we usually have an opening season like May 24th weekend. We have a huge concert there, and then in September we have a closing season concert. And like it's pretty big. We have about 800 people for Labor Day Fest, and May 24th weekend we usually have a smaller one. This year we had Damien Follett booked, and I remember calling Damien in April, and I said, Damien, I don't think it's going to happen this year. And he said, John, you're crazy. May 24th week and all this will be gone. So anyway, I think we were still in lockdown at that point. So we had to start making plans and putting plans in place. By April 20th, I think we had 700 cancellations. For a small tourism operator, that's a lot. You can see the pictures there, edge of the Avalon Inn, we have 15 rooms there. We have another annex building with 10 rooms. Then we have a couple of really nice chalets that we also have. So we met with our staff. First and foremost, we wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable. We have an older staff, as much of rural Newfoundland does. And we wanted to hear what they had envisioned and if they felt safe coming back to work. Some of our staff didn't. We usually have about 18 staff on the payroll for the summer. This year, we cut it back to about 8 to 10. Without the wage subsidy, we definitely wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So then we started putting plans in place. So we went out and we purchased the spray machine that for vaccinating the rooms, or not but spraying the rooms. We met with our cleaning staff. So what they felt comfortable, they didn't feel comfortable like going in a day later. So we left the rooms vacant for 2 days. Then once the room was thoroughly cleaned, we'd actually put a sticker on the door. And a lot of this came from H&L webinars. We were pleased to, I think we were on webinars last year, and H&L really proved themselves last year in that, we had a lot of information given to us on a daily basis, and it was changing every day. So we took that into account, and we basically changed every day. So with the core staff in place, then we decided we have a 70-seat restaurant in our inn. We decided not to open that this year, and we just did takeout. The girls didn't feel comfortable in the dining room having patrons come visit there all the time. So we do takeout and room service to our guests or whatever. Then probably in June or July, we realized that people actually didn't feel comfortable staying at the inn or staying in hotels in general. So we, like Joe did, we changed up our website and everything like that, and we really focused on our chalets. And we felt that people felt comfortable coming and traveling as a family or as a bubble. And by that time, then our chalets were booked out all summer, but our inn was way down. But anyway, we survived. We had to think of different ways of maneuvering each day, basically, while keeping our guests safe and our staff safe. And I listened to my staff every day. We had meetings 3 times a week. We never did that before. We probably have a meeting once every 2 weeks or so. But we just had to make sure that they all felt safe and confident in what they were doing, how we were proceeding. With our takeout, we'd only allow one person in, the same as most businesses did throughout Newfoundland and Labrador last summer. But I really feel this year we're well ahead of where we were, obviously, last year. And if people are going to travel, and if we can get the Atlantic bubble open, I think Newfoundland and Labrador is a place that people will feel safe, wide open spaces that will want to come, especially if we can get the Canadian bubble open. Even I think I can see July, August being somewhat busy, hopefully, if we can do this. So yeah, that's basically what we did, Stan. And we're putting plans in place for this year. We have a number of bookings from the US, from all over Canada. We're waiting to see if they're going to come through or if they're going to be canceled or whatever. But hopefully we can keep it on the books. We're right next to Mistaken Point, which is a World UNESCO Heritage Site, and that draws a lot of people. So there's a lot of nice hiking trails and everything around the area, and people feel comfortable doing that and getting out in the fresh air and enjoying that. So we'll see where it goes. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to jump in, Johnny, because you're on there now. So obviously, you know your customer. That sounds like you looked at the research and you figured out who you've got coming. So for this year, what do you think is going to resonate with them, with your audience? If we have an Atlantic bubble, or even if we have a resonant bubble, do you think it'll be any different than last year? Or it sounds like it's different than it was in years past. But what do you think for 2021?
I think the beginning of the summer is going to be a lot like last year, in that people cannot travel the way with freedom they want to. But people are a lot more informed now. They have the confidence. They know we got to wear our PPE, our masks, and everything else. So people are prepared to do that, and people feel comfortable with doing that now. And again, I think it's going to be people traveling in bubbles and family groups and everything again. So that's what we're gearing up towards again this year at the start of it. Hopefully by Labor Day again, we can have our big Labor Day fest and have Shannigannock up there and 800 people coming again. So
Sure,
that's the plan.
sure. Thanks, Joe.
But
What would you?
we're willing to make the changes again, like whatever we have to do.
Yeah, the flexibility sounds to be crucial. Joe, if you're still there, along the same lines, a similar question. You know, it might be different 2021 than 2020. You obviously know your competition extremely, extremely well, and you've got your head around so much where you guys formed a partnership. So from the strengths and weaknesses of doing what you did last year, what do you think in this summer is going to look like in regards to the marketplace, and trying to develop a strategy that you can stay alive, if not grow?
Well, because our companies are basically living in the cloud, we've redesigned our website this season. Whole new fresh website, whole new fresh look, and we'll probably be offering some different off the beat offerings, like sort of packaging different product. Like we'll make some things about the trail happen this year for people. You know, we'll probably do some culinary events. We had to shut down our restaurant, as you know, because people were very worried about restaurants opening up. So we'll be putting our thinking caps on. Who knows? Maybe we'll come up with a fish stew sort of an event, or some sort of a thing that will add to the Newfoundland experience that normal people don't get to do normally, because it's an exceptional thing to do. So we didn't run our small fast boat last year. Maybe we'll put some kind of a package together for that sort of a thing this year. My colleagues together, all gentlemen around the West Coast right now, doing a little bit of skiing, trying to get some human time in. And when they get back, we're going to sit down and collaborate very well, and put together as many offerings for our guests as possible, and make them attracted to our area, because it's not just one thing, it's everything. You know, for people like ourselves and John, we're always changing our hat and putting on different hats. I mean, they have the whales coming in on St. Vincent's Beach in the spring, so you'll offer that sort of an event. You have midsummer things happening with the bird colony, with the puffin patrol, like we've had in the last number of years. We've rejigged all that sort of an event. So we're always changing, always evolving.
Sure, perfect.
And Stan, another
Yep.
point too. One of the big things I got from last year was communications. H&L were out there giving the webinars and everything, but I felt it was important that we talk with the Joe O'Briens of the world, the Deborah Bordens in the tourism, in the accommodation sector. And these people were always very accommodating, in you could make a call to anyone. And I felt that, you know, you're not in this alone, and there's other people out there that are going to support you too. So that was a big help too, that I noticed.
Yeah, I think what you do there, John, you're also reaching out folks like Michaela and the department that are sending out information and surveys. Then you're also talking to your operators that are sometimes considered competition, but the reality aren't, and just come together and collaborate on what information analysis they've had. I heard that a lot last year. People got a lot of value talking to other people in the industry, especially in this province, and others, to get some sense of what the market looked like, what was going on, what could we expect in an incredibly uncertain time.
For sure.
We're right at the end. I would like to take a question or two. So we got a lot of people on the line. If someone has a burning question, they can pipe up right now and you can ask it. If not, I guess you can type or ask a question, send an email into me, and we'll try to get it answered. But remember, this session is being recorded too, so you can go back anytime and check out what was said. So if someone has a question, speak now or forever hold your peace. Perfect. So, guys, thank you very much. Thanks so much, Michaela and John and Joe. That's excellent. Well done. Really appreciate that. It's very, very valuable. Remember, folks that are out there, that there's not everyone who's in tourism, the 2,700 or 3,000 of the operators that are involved in tourism in this province are on the line today. So make sure you reach out to those folks and encourage those that aren't involved with this to get involved more and get involved with some of the different supports that Hospitality NL offers. Thanks, folks, for being there. Thanks for our presenters. We have another session coming up in a half an hour for those that have registered. For those that haven't, the sessions are going ahead again on Wednesdays, a repeat of these sessions. So very much appreciated. If you have any questions or ideas or comments or concerns, reach out to Hospitality NL and they'll be happy to help you in your business. Otherwise, folks, thanks so much and have a great day. Cheers.